Hello, everybody, and here we are again in English for our fourth English language FCG Voices Fashion Talks. And we've got a really international Berlin-based bunch of people, all active in the independent designer sphere. So our Indie Day. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Melissa Drier. I am a veteran fashion journalist at this point in my life, former German correspondent for Women's Wear Daily in Berlin since 1985, and I'm now quite often in the woods of Land Brandenburg. Our guests are Waridi Schrobsdorff. She's the founder and power behind FA, or Fashion Africa 254. She works and promotes emerging design talents in East Africa, and both at home via training and mentoring programs, and then abroad via various platforms, including the FA254 website. British-born men's designer Ashley Marc Hovelle is another Wahlberliner. His namesake brand, AMH, and wardrobe essentials range Oft, had him spending a lot of time in Portugal. I'll find out more about that today, at least pre-corona. And then we have Magnus Blikeng. I forgot to ask the pronunciation of your last name. I apologize for that. But Norwegian by birth. Magnus studied and worked in the UK for 9 years, and he's the founder in Berlin of the workwear brand Novicewear, and which, he said, in part aims to bridge Europe and the UK in the age of Brexit. But if we think Brexit is a mess, of course, Corona tops and changes everything, which is why we're on a Zoom session today. Waridi, I wanted to know, how has your work changed during the lockdown? And how are your designers managing? Are they still trying to break into the international market, or have they just put that on hold for a while?
First of all, thank you, Melissa. And hi, guys. Basically, how have I managed with the lockdown during this time? I lost 3 projects, which was also including traveling to Africa. I had a project in Ghana for training, and that was then blocked, and the other projects are on hold. I just received an email last week. One project is going to go on, but instead of the budget that was, now they just want to give 1/3 of that budget, and also to reduce the training pattern in a way to make it as tight as possible, and also to be more digital. So it's a little bit kind of during the time, also myself, I had to really rethink how I wanted to continue with Fashion Africa 254, as my work a lot had to be with traveling to Africa, with the training. Do I still want to do that, and how I want to do it? As far as the designers are concerned, the African designers that are on my platform, I'm actually surprised how well they're doing. So it's funny, maybe not funny, but they, as Africans, are really, they've survived a lot. So anytime a crisis comes, they take opportunity of how to get the most out of it. Most of the designers, actually African designers in Africa now, they're the heroes, because of immediately the government turns to the designers for making the mask, and doing also making uniforms for the hospital, or protection.
Hospital gowns and so forth, yeah.
Gowns and so actually, whether it's in Rwanda, whether it's in Kenya or Ghana, it's just amazing that they have to change their whole atelier now into the health design, you know. So this actually—
Who's providing the fabrics?
Well, they use their own fabrics.
Oh, okay. So we're getting...
They use their own fabrics. One designer from Ghana just told me she basically always sources her materials for half a year. As you know, also in Africa, the designers don't produce collection after collection. They just have one collection a year, which is basically where we are here in the Western rethinking how to showcase our collection. So they're doing not so bad, and they're also focusing on helping their workers. For them, their main concern is their workers, so they create everything they can that their workers can continue working and supporting them, and also how they are selling their masks, that from one mask they can have 2 extra masks to give to those who cannot buy or in a poor area. So they're really busy.
Ashley, how have you been doing since I couldn't reach you?
It's been really good, actually. It's been a really good time, to be honest. Like, it's given me time to actually focus on my health as wealth and really focus on our diet. So it's actually realizing that before how little we actually moved, and just to sustain our sales, I think, is one of the most important things that we can do at this time. And, you know, I realized that before we're just walking to the office or maybe doing some boxing here and there, but just doing exercise every day has really made a difference to the well-being and mindset towards business each day. So that's been a really good thing for us. So, and I'm like the fittest I've been in 10 years, got some muscles now, so feeling good.
Wow, wow, wow. Congratulations. What's with production? Are you producing, or have you also, if you put spring on hold, are you not doing seasons?
I mean, the whole premise, obviously, of OFT is a trans-seasonal wardrobe.
Yeah.
You know, it's a collection that's built off of wardrobe staples that you're meant to wear often. You know, so 1 of 10 is a t-shirt, 10 of 10 is an overcoat. But then we are introducing our Autumn/Winter 20 collection, which has like a few heavier weight pieces, like a long overcoat or some knitwear, and even a number 0 category, which is accessories. I mean, production is a little bit slower at the moment. Normally we'd be delivering around this time, but actually production is going to be finished around August for some of it. And then the final production is going to be finished in September, because Portugal has normally a 3-week holiday, which they're still adhering to, even though they've obviously had time off. But I think they've been good to shut things down very quickly, whilst when I was out there back in February, finalizing some things. So things are moving forward, but a little bit more slowly than usual.
But it's good you're on the new calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can see how this works. It sounds more reasonable to me.
In terms of, you know, a lot of our collection, obviously we have these staples within the collection. So we're actually quite fortunate because we're able to deliver some of these stock items that we have. So we can do split deliveries at the moment.
Okay.
Which is really helping us. And I think, you know, with our online, this has been one of our main focus and our main drivers over the last few months, which has, you know, kept us alive in a good way. You know, we've put a lot of effort and energy into our new site and all the content that we're driving, and it's been the most we've ever sold online in a decade. So I'm really happy with that, and it's been a really good response from the customers.
Silver linings. I keep hearing about silver linings. Magnus, I wanted to know a little bit, for you to share a little bit more about how you work. You have an interdisciplinary background for sure. You work with a multidisciplinary team to create Novicewear. How does Novicewear function, actually, if you can sum that up quickly?
Yeah, yeah, I can give you a bit of background. So I do have, I have 0 background in fashion or apparel before doing this project. So I primarily have basically built a network of people that I can collaborate with in terms of technical design or brand or so forth. It is primarily run by myself, most of it, and it is still kind of as doing very small scale production. Launched in December. Initially started to produce in Poland, now producing in Berlin on a very small scale on a pre-order basis. Primarily it's a lot of risk aversion in it. There's like basically there's limits of what you can do, and it's kind of, for me at least, it's been I don't know, it's been a big challenge in terms of being able to establish the brand and have the liquidity that is required to build a presence, as well as doing product development alongside this current situation. So it's been challenging for sure. It was a big enough challenge to launch the brand in December.
To begin with.
So, and then, but like I would say, like my kind of the way I come from more of a technology and background in that sense, or educational background, where I currently work. And I bring in my kind of way of doing product development, which is very different from what I'm seeing a lot of the more traditional ways of doing it. However, I'm not able to do my kind of, I don't know, not frustrations, but kind of like, it's just like, I'm very used to doing quick iterations and quick fixes on things. And then when I don't have the skill set to do that myself, I need someone else to help me to do the new digital technical patterns or samples and so on. The time frames of how I envision things to be is a lot longer because I can't currently employ people on a full-time basis in any forms.
It's learning by doing at the moment, it sounds like, or doing by doing, but to the extent that one can do anything. You know, it's never been easy being an independent designer, especially here in Germany, just because independent fashion thinking doesn't seem to be what's valued most here, either by retailers or by consumers. I don't know which is more difficult. And now the system is sort of upending, but yeah, Waridi, you said people, and your designers are saying things, I mean, are there regular collections out there, or are they so involved with the hospital situation, with the masks and the hospital clothing, that their own collections are not visible?
Basically, what they're concentrating is on online, digital. This is the biggest part to see the challenge, how to tackle that and how to reach consumers through online. One of the designers, they are continuing. One of my designers, Christy Brown, did her showcase virtually about 3 weeks ago, her new collection, and she had amazing. There were 1,300 people participated on Instagram watching the whole virtual show, and also interview and the whole thing, like real show happening. And then and I spoke to her afterwards, and she said, I spoke to her like a week ago, and she said actually within 10 days she was sold out, and she has 33,000 views on the Instagram, what they call it, the AGT or something video. Yeah. So I think they're grabbing chance how to really work fast and get going, and not business as usual, but business is unusual way. So they are basically not thinking, okay, this is the end. It's just how they can work in a new way and still continue and sustain their business, you know.
It sounds like there's been a lot of energy. At one point, at first, it seemed like everyone was home and sort of turning inwards. But the more I hear, the more it sounds like there's a lot of energy being released in our field. We'll have to see where it goes, but that's a pretty exciting thing. Ashley, what happens next with you then? So OFT gets a few, you said some coats are coming through. Normally we would be thinking about next winter, next winter, or at least next summer. But I mean, you haven't been showing here per se. You weren't really in that setup so much. I mean,
I mean, for what, showing in Berlin?
Yeah, showing in Berlin, sort of, you know, that wasn't an issue.
I've shown like in Berlin for a long time. I think for nearly 10 years actually.
So where was I?
When it was originally at the Cool House, and for many years.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, last season obviously I had to do a talk at Munich, but most of the time, yes, we can concentrate maybe on Paris or Copenhagen or a few other areas. But I mean, we're still continuing with that. We're just focusing probably more now on showrooms. direct showrooms. You know, I've loved doing the trade shows all these times, and I think it's great to get people into one place at one time so people don't have to travel so much, which obviously cuts down the carbon footprint. But I think for me personally, I think showrooms are the way forward. But I think, you know, like what she was just saying there, I think what we've really noticed during this time is how that what we've been wanting to focus on for a long time is actually people are moving towards more maybe like B2P, like business to people, and really recognizing the strengths that we have as a brand and the bestsellers that we've been putting forward to maybe the buyers. But sometimes the buyers have a subjective viewpoint or base it on statistical numbers from a previous season. But I think what we're noticing now more is that people are becoming more reactive and actually focusing on what they really want. And that's been reflected with our online sales. And obviously going forward for spring summer 21, we'll keep a lot of the collection. I mean, about 80% of the collection is kind of mainstay, and then the collection changes a little bit. So we'll have a few lighter weight pieces come back in, and a few lighter weight fabrics. And yeah, that's where we'll move to really for spring summer 21. And then as I said before, we'll be delivering autumn winter 20 in the next few months. And then, yeah, we should be back on track. But yeah, the best benefit for us has also been online. You know, we've never had the time to really focus on this, and this has given us that time to really sit down, really reflect upon what we were doing previously. And as obviously stores have been shut, it's just giving us a new way forward. And really,
it gives you freedom, perhaps.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, it gives us freedom, and then just to have a sustainable online revenue, not to rely upon retailers or other avenues, this traditional route, which I've relied upon so heavily for maybe the last decade, and I've been so heavily involved in. It's quite nice to take a step back and really reflect upon how this can be done from the foundation of the company. And it's something I've been wanting to do for a long time, so it's actually been a blessing for us as well.
Magnus, I wanted to ask you if you're where you expected to be now in 2020, or did Corona sort of throw things in disarray?
I think, well, expectations on sales and so forth, I think was higher, and also a bit more establishment versus, I think it's like what we talk a lot about at the school I work with is kind of this time is about, you know, is that being reactive or proactive.
We don't know where things are going necessarily, but the door has cracked open. It's cracked open to change. People are thinking about things, but what do you think the changes, the necessary changes and the implementation of these changes in the fashion system, what could it look like?
So I think it's been actually, like I said before, a blessing that might help people to really sit down and really consider what they're purchasing at what point in time. And I think, you know, I'd love it to go back to traditional ways of shopping or fashion, where we would buy seasonally, so the product would be in store for that time of year, rather than having, you know, spring, summer, and then you've got this autumn, winter heavy coats in at that point and everything is on sale. I mean, I think maybe we can link it more to food, especially seasonal fruit and vegetables that are local and harvested locally. That we can also support local independence in the same way. And I think people are moving more towards that these days. And I think even the bigger brands are trying to adopt the strategies that smaller independents have, because I think there's more realness that people are responding to, and especially our stories that we all have here. I think people respond to that sustainable story and something with an ethos and concept behind it. And I think it's what people have been looking for a long time. If you can make those small changes, even like changing your washing machine from 40 degrees to 30 degrees, saves 40% of the energy. So I think even if people aren't buying into what we do, I think if we can all make these little steps, I think that crack in the door can be sealed and that door can be open. And I think we will flourish how we used to, maybe like lying in the washing wardrobe.
I mean, more voices are being raised, and that's in many aspects of our lives, not only in the world of fashion. And it's people are actually saying something, and more people are saying something, and that's positive.
I think starting from myself also is just about the focusing to really what you're good at, and instead of doing 10 different things, to do 3 things that is really giving more value and quality to your work in the fashion industry from my side. And this is what I also basically the designers, the African designers, to really see revise themselves. What is their uniqueness, and what do they want to produce that is value, and not just produce everything and think it is needed, but it's what it's just like now during this time you just saw we didn't need much, and then we just have to go on. Also, like to change the mindset of the consumers. They get what you have, and not to try to get what you don't have. Like trying to get everything and thinking for the consumers what they need. Just focusing on small, less collection products. So there's much more value to that.
Magnus, I don't have the wording exactly, but on your website, I had loved it. I said it felt like the mantra for our wasteful times, of the 3 reasons why you decided to focus on workwear. And it had to do with durability. It had to do with a design that was based on function. That's not what you said, but it's partially how I read it. Maybe you can say a little bit more there.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, in the wake of, I think what I always, let me backtrack. In terms of I think a bit of my background of looking at clothing comes very much from that nature of utility. I do like extravagant pieces, but I also see kind of my primary wardrobe, and also what I see as most kind of interesting is that kind of, I don't know, spending 3 days to identify a pocket from the First World War or something like that can be interpreted into something interesting. Looking at kind of from, because I think it's really interesting in terms of you combine that with a bit more of a minimalistic kind of mindset of how to consume and how to produce. There's multi-usage of clothing, as well as kind of having I would say, in terms of what I try to do with the pieces we made so far, is that they have a lot of kind of adjustments, and we don't have a broad sizing offering and so forth. So kind of just trying to make a small set accessible to many. But yeah, I think it's, for me, it's I always have, because I've studied marketing, I worked in marketing, advertising, and I even remember when I did my bachelor in basically how to sell sustainability, and you're a bit at some point you get the cusp of you can't keep on. My kind of counter argument to most of it is that if you still aim to sell 100,000 items, even if they come from a more organic source or so forth, the question becomes more about the mindset of how to actually decrease the level of consumption instead of the breadth of the offering. So I'm going a bit off, but I think I don't know if that answers your questions. It was a bit broad, but
no, but it's interesting. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. I keep thinking it was a children's song, to market, a pig, little pig, or something like that. But the basic thing for everybody is you still have to get your product to market. At the moment, the normal avenues are closed. So July isn't happening. September in Paris is sort of happening, but I don't know to what extent. It seems like people are getting still more time, more thinking time, more prep time. But at the same time, really, you have to gain visibility. You have to generate buzz. You have to find your consumer. Are there new tools now? Are there new possibilities at the moment due to new technology? Here we're all zooming around. That's not new technology. It's just being used en masse. But does it seem to you that there are new ways to help in this process of trying to find your customer, or gain visibility, or, as I say, create buzz?
I can help to answer a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've actually used an online showroom for maybe maybe 10 years now anyway. So that's been part of the process. So that's always been good. maybe sometimes we would have hoped for more sales through it, so maybe now we might see a better reaction to the online showroom, which we'd hoped for. But that's also been part of our normal process of sending out lookbooks, line sheets, which have all been digital for a long time. Maybe we would have had more physical ones to hand out at shows, and, as you say. But we're actually trying to focus now a little bit more on the content, like the visual content. We love developing the content, especially imagery, but the videos, and maybe showing more of the detail of the garment up close and personal, maybe showing how it moves and drapes. I mean, I'd love to in the future do maybe some, hologram type showcase or show. So if you know anyone, Melissa or anyone out there, then that would be great for us.
But you do a lot. I mean, you invite people to like most people, to subscribe to your newsletter or to become members or this or that. How else do you go and capture people?
Yeah, are we talking about like trade or direct to consumer? Or?
More direct to consumer, it seems.
I mean, I think like this is actually the first time we've done advertising since April. And that's, like paid advertising, really. We've done.
Where are you doing that?
So we do that via Instagram or Facebook.
Okay.
Predominantly over Instagram, because that's where more of our audience lies. And yeah, it's really interesting to see the results that has brought, and the audience that has brought. And it's something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and it's actually that's helping to generate these new customers like we haven't had before. I mean, you can do a lot of organic reach with so much, and that can also bring in sales and revenue and people that really love what you do. And also maybe in person, we were fortunate last year to obviously have the pop-up shop directly in Mitte in Berlin for many months, and that was the biggest we've ever sold direct to consumer, and that gave us that direct feedback that we've never had before. I think I touched upon it earlier about sometimes buyers might back certain styles, but this has really given us that confidence to know that what we're doing is right for the people. And then especially with the installation. I mean, I think right now, as things open up, maybe we can look at doing things more closer to nature and showing in, more unusual places or doing some more unusual things. But
sounds good. Next, who? Waridi, anything there or?
I'll just add to what Ashley said. That's basically with. Digital is now the way, and I think it's working quite well for the moment. But of course, also for me, I miss the real people. But I think it's not a must to have like a fashion week to run from one fashion week to another, to other cities. Maybe to prioritize where is the most important for you to be, and instead of going to 10 fashion weeks, you go to just 1 or 2, and that we continue to slow down, and also for the planet that we, if you see with traveling now, I would be by now have traveled at least flown around maybe 20 times. And I have done only once, so that's already a good thing for the planet. And I think we should keep on that pace to balance the planet and humanity, and like also you mentioned before, I think there should be more investing how to connect with the nature and growing stuff. I mean, in Africa, we are so rich with fiber and this are the things now the designers are thinking also how to work with the fibers for coloring their clothing and not to use chemical. And so there's so many things to look at to really continue and make this time giving us a lesson or change or open and open for a new way.
And hopefully take advantage of this moment in time that's allowed us to think in this direction. I read the New York Times, Vanessa Friedman in the Times this weekend. She was a little annoyed, that, she said her column was called "Let's Talk About Change." And then I remembered she was disappointed that Dior, and that sort of implies LVMH, is just going back to the old ways, cruise, couture, cruise in July, couture in September. And she thought what could happen is that the big boys and the big luxury boys, it could split the market, it could fracture, and that there'd be two halves, with the mega luxury brands returning to their former schedule and smaller indie brands wanting fewer shows and a more logical delivery system. Do you think, can the independents prevail, and do they need to somehow group together? Not necessarily in a big way, but in small ways. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily, it's sort of happening in Berlin, not about mega luxury, but about the indies are not probably necessarily going to be moving over in 2021 the way, you know, some people are suggesting they will. You know, maybe they'll say, no, we don't need to, or we don't need to be doing this at this stage of time. But what do independents need to do? Do they need each other? What do they need to do to prevail? Because I think we need you more than ever.
Definitely, yeah, I think you're definitely right there. I mean, I think sometimes what is a difficult thing as an independent brand is trying to make sure you can make production to the minimums that the factory is requiring or requesting at the time. So I think maybe we could have more power as independents if we all collaborated together and then produced at one point in time, which might help with production on demand. Maybe we could even get the government to maybe support some more local production here in Berlin or in Germany, so therefore reduce the travel. Maybe we can do smaller quantities then and go back to how we used to produce. And I think maybe even the government can put restrictions on these bigger brands doing these certain showcases or these things that, you know, is not helping the system or the planet in general. And I think we need to, like, in terms of like educating the customer, I think we need to educate them in a better way and try to, even for example, the deliveries that all these bigger retail players offer, you know, these free returns after 100 days, all of these things need to be changed, because I think the consumer's got so used to having this ease of sending, returning, and in essence, that's not good for the system at all. You know, it's like we've just started really working this online system. We've had a few returns, few exchanges, but it causes a lot of time, excess, everyone's energy, the sending cost of that, you know, and I think that's something that really needs to change, and people need to understand, like, the people that are behind it and the whole ethos behind even sending a garment and return, you know, that is something that could make a change for us all as well. But I think, you know, like I said before, I think we need to maybe step away from this traditional, you know, ordering 6 months in advance. Maybe we need to make things more relevant for both, you know, B2P and B2B. And maybe we can make it more seasonal, like fruit and vegetables.
We have touched on sustainability, but I said that includes responsible consumption as well as production. And when you talk about educating the consumer, and I'm all with you there, I'm just not exactly sure how you do it. You know, a lot of the influencers are the least educated out there. How are we going to do it? And people don't like, you know, they don't want teachers in that way. They don't want to be told they have to do something. And I don't blame them. I don't like being told I have to do stuff.
Definitely. And I think, you know, it's like, I wouldn't have started off, you know, from, obviously I've run my namesake brand for 10 years, and I wouldn't have started it if I didn't know that change was possible. And I think, like, even back to the installation, I notice people there, when they're reading these facts and then what we do, and they really can sit back and reflect and say, okay, this is what I'm really looking for. We're not forcing it down people's throats, telling them this is what you need to do. We might say, you know, we've worked out what you really wear, you know, so, and it's like a question mark. It's like, what do you wear often, you know, and we kind of question the people to question themselves rather than just trying to force it down their throats, which many other marketing employees might try to do, you know, and we're trying to educate people into buying less and only what they need to wear more often. So I think, in essence, that's the most sustainable part of what we do. And then obviously behind that, some of our cotton was grown with rainwater, supports more families and children. And then it goes, you know, it's organic. And so then there's the no pesticides approach. But I think, you know, it's, I think it's just about people resonating with realness as well. And if you're being true with what you say, I think people will really respond to that. And I think that's where the difference comes in between independents and bigger players. I think, like I said before, you notice some bigger players are trying to catch on to some, maybe using them as like marketing employees. But actually I'm doing this because I've lived out the concept myself for the last 10 years. I've ran my own namesake brand. I don't believe in these seasonal collections anymore. And I've really tried to work out what it is that you can wear so you're free to focus on what really matters. And I think you can feel that in the clothes, you can feel that in what we do. And I think it's always a different feeling when you get something, or you're getting an advert or whatever that is, or even just the way you respond to people. I mean, sometimes even here in Berlin, we might even hand deliver the products to get a nicer feel for the customer at the end of the day. And then they get to meet the people that are behind the brand. And I think that's what a lot of people maybe can't do. So we're trying to do things in a more people-focused approach, you know?
I think the system, when about Melissa saying people don't like to be educated, you know. I mean, during this time, you saw there were rules and regulations, and if they produce less or we produce less and bring in less in the shops, and the shops to be opened in certain hours, because if you look at the shop, let's say from morning till 5, there are more people going to buy. Why do you open the shop till 8 o'clock? So to close, that already changes the set of how people think we can go anytime and go and buy. So these are kind of rules and to be changed, and that way can basically automatically educate us, or maybe us everyone consumers. These are kind of things I think should be implemented also as a whole.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, Magnus, come, please.
Cool. Yeah, I think the main challenge is a lot, because like the primary of all, like the digital commerce is primarily driven by convenience. And that's going to be the challenge, because people are used, like you mentioned, with the 100-day return shipping, free shipping, 1 hour drop off in Manhattan from Amazon. It's like it's built on to hyper growth. And I think that's I find personally, that's the kind of the conflict with, there's a lot of this kind of conscious and really strong movements within sustainability and minimalism and so forth. And then you have the hypergrowth through capitalism that is in all the major digital companies that is coming through, and is a big crash. It's like you see there's a movement that has a lot of positive energy, and then you have, I would say, the old traditional Wall Street in Silicon Valley that's pushing the behavior so that's why I'm always like a bit suspicious. I love those smaller movements in terms of like seeing that kind of conscious thinking, seeing great independent brands and institutions doing good things. But then it's like the systematic kind of conflict of the scale of these players versus the H&Ms and the Zaras and these ones.
Nice.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody, for being with us. I'm still shockingly optimistic. I'm feeling optimistic. You know, that's not the usual case. So, but just keep on, let's think positive. And I agree, let's do little bits of good. It'll add up.
Yes. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.